So today we're just going to use the analogy, the brain as an orange, to discuss the link between food and mood. So if I ask you, how do you grow the perfect orange? You may tell me, well, you need the right environment. You need enough sunshine, you need enough water, and you need the right nutrients. And similarly, the brain needs that same amount of fluid. So 2 liters of fluid a day. If you don't like the taste of water, a slice of orange or any other fruit in water can actually be a real nice way of enjoying water more often. So 2 liters a day at least. And then also for energy, the brain needs energy every second of the day. So if we zoom in here, if it's nice and unprocessed, so that's unprocessed muesli, there's some multigrain bread, it's slower releasing than, for instance, white bread and pasta for the evening meal. It is much better than if it is a very refined form of carbohydrates. So that's quite good. And also the brain needs protein. So omega-3 fatty acids is, for instance, in the oily fish. Most of the brain, the dry content of brain is omega-3 fatty acids. So it's a very, very good source of protein. And also there's some lentils here, some beans, some nuts and eggs. So excellent sources for giving the brain protein, which is the basic forms for making the hormones. And if we go back to here, so if I take a toothpick and I start pricking this orange, I'm causing a lot of damage. Similarly, if you are eating a diet that's high in trans fatty acids, so for instance, if you have a lot of takeaway foods or chips from the chippy, and you have crisps and you have some of the biscuits as well, it contains trans fatty acids. And similarly to stress and alcohol and smoking, it acts as oxidants that can cause damage to the brain and can affect how the brain releases the hormones, and it can affect mood. Now, we all like those kind of foods, so it's not to say you can never ever have that again, but have it more occasional rather than on a regular basis. The good news is, if I do the following, I take a plaster and I put that on the point of this toothpick, and I try now to cause the same amount of damage, that's actually not possible. So the great thing is as well, is you can actually have a lot of antioxidants in your diet that can prevent the harm that the oxidants can cause to the brain. And that is in this section here. So you know that 5 a day, 7, 10 times a day, fruit and vegetables. So that is excellent. The more fruit and vegetables in your diet, the better. And use the rainbow colors effect, so you're more colorful, and use a variety of fruit and vegetables. Just, you cannot have enough of that every day. Something else that can cause harm as well. So if I take wax and I actually pour this on this orange, and you see what's happening? I'm changing the structure. It's actually quite rigid now. Just have to blow this out before we cause a fire. So I've changed it, and whoops-a-daisy, it really is quite rigid. And that's what's happening as well if your diet is very high in saturated fat. So for instance, in chocolate, full cream soft cheese and cheeses, and in cream, that changes the structure of the brain. So it's quite rigid, and if it's rigid, it again can't function optimally. It releases the hormones, it releases in a different way, and that can affect mood. Now, the better fat to use is, for instance, olive oil. So if I do the same and I pour a bit of olive oil on here, just a tiny bit, oops, you'll see it still looks the same. I'm not changing anything there, and that's actually what research have shown, is if you replace the fat in your diet, if you had a diet high in saturated fat, you replace it with olive oil, you don't change the structure of the brain, you just change the function of the brain, so it's a better oil to use. Now, the great news is, like so many other organs in our body, the brain can repair itself. So what I use here is a little tweezer, and if I have the tweezer and I remove some of this wax, you see I can do that. And there's a process in the brain called methylation, and for optimal function and for it to help it repair itself, it needs vitamin B12, and that you can find in milk and dairy produce. So 1 glass of milk a day actually gives you your vitamin B12 supply. Vitamin B6, which is found in pork and in chicken and in fish products, and you find it also in a little bit of bananas, and funny enough, small amount you find in oranges as well. and folic acid, which you find in dark green leafy vegetables and in oranges as well. So if your diet is high in that, it can help this process of self-repair. And then finally, you may all have heard about the microbiome, which is just so unique to all of us, and it shows the link between the gut and the brain is a direct link. So if we have good gut health, you can also improve your mood. So you might have heard from the dentist, if you use an electric toothbrush, you can remove more plaque. So it prevents the bacteria from causing harm in your mouth. The same, if your diet is high in fiber, it helps the gut to work better. And actually, so if you take this toothbrush, and I can remove more of the wax with that as well. Oops, I remove all of that. That's the same effect that fiber can have in the inside of your gut. And it helps that link to be a good link between the gut and your brain. And for the optimal microbiome, again, we go back to you cannot have enough fruit and vegetables for fiber as well as for prebiotics. You also find some probiotics in yogurt. That's very good for the microbiome. And you also find a bit in nuts, so a varied diet. And it all comes back, I mean, you may sort of think, gosh, we've heard it so often, the more fruit, the better it is for you. But I can also then just say, not only is food good for your physical health, it really can also benefit your mental health.